This special edition of our Coffee, Cake, and Camo podcast would not be possible without the support of our awesome partners. Thank you, T-Mobile, for being a force behind the forces and a proud partner of our outdoor adventure team.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Coffee, Cake, and Camo. If you don't know it, the Outdoor Adventure Team gets to be featured one time a month, and we love this spot. We love all the followings and feedback we're getting from you guys. So just wanted to welcome you to today's episode. If you don't know a lot about OAT and what OAT means, it's the Outdoor Adventure Team. This is a program that is under the USO of Hampton Roads in Central Virginia. We are primarily sponsored by T-Mobile and super excited to have them on board right now. So basically what we do is we get together as adults and kind of do really cool things and have fun, get a chance to laugh at ourselves, laugh at each other, and have good conversations and hopefully, get some healing done. And we're going to talk a lot about healing on today's episode because this guy that's on the screen with you, John Macaskill, I'm not going to steal any of his thunder, but we're going to be talking with him. So a couple things that have happened recently. We've just implemented a really good metrics tracking process for our studio because as we grow, everything we do at the USO is based on our sponsors and our donors. So we want to understand our metrics a lot better. And 2020, although it was kind of a kooky year with COVID, we've actually been able to accomplish a fair amount of things. And again, going back to thanking T-Mobile for their sponsorship of us this year, because it really did kind of pop the cap for us and allow us to do a lot of really cool things. So I just finished a report that we're submitting up the chain, and kind of just to give you a little of the history, the amount of people that we had come through in 2019 was 340, just over 340 people. At that time, we were basically a cycling organization with an indoor studio, cycling studio, and then some outdoor riding, and then a little bit of rowing. So that 343 represented kind of 2019 overall. And so 2020, we just ran our reports, and basically, again, COVID in mind, everybody was shut down from basically March till around just before September. There was not a lot going on. We actually just went over 1,000 unique experiences that have happened just under the OAT banner. So we're super excited about that. It's just representative of the wide net that we're casting right now and all these different offerings that we're having. The most recent of which we actually did this last weekend, which was up at York River State Park in Virginia. And it was an adventure race that we put on. We featured Brent Russell on our last podcast talking about it and getting people kind of excited. Well, it was a smashing success. We'd love to thank Dunkin' Donuts also for bringing in the sponsorship of the coffee and the donuts for that morning. But we had 82 family members come up to the park and do their first adventure race. There was a couple, I think there was 3 people that had done some before, but it was a smashing success. And that's really important for us at OAT because OAT is not just about the active duty member, it's also about the dependent family member. And so you'll see a lot more of those kind of offerings coming out, but it was a wonderful success. We're getting ready to disseminate all the pictures and more good stuff to go. So introducing John, this handsome gentleman who's outdoors today. I'll let him explain to you why he's outdoors today. But I've known John a very, very long time. He's an incredible heart, an incredible soul, and is doing amazing stuff with his company called Veteran Path. So I just want to read off a little bit about him and that I took off his LinkedIn, and we'll connect you guys with his links for his website and his LinkedIn underneath the recording here so you can reach out and find out a little bit more. But basically, after almost 24 years as both an enlisted sailor and a commissioned U.S. Navy SEAL officer, he retired from the military. His journey has been a wild ride, and things did not go quite as planned, but they definitely worked out for the best, which I love that statement. It's all about setting a proper sail, right, John?
That's right. That's right.
So he's been blessed to serve. Huh?
Getting ready for Plan B.
That's right. That's right. So he's been blessed to serve with some of the greatest men and women in the world. He's seen some of the places and done things that most only read or dream about, and he's honorably served his country and defended his fellow Americans. He is now the Deputy Executive Director for Veterans Path, a nonprofit helping veterans rediscover meaning, purpose, and joy through mindfulness, meditation, and a safe community. If you're a transitioning service member, veteran, or someone looking to help transition service members or veterans, please connect with him. I'll leave it there because I want you to tell your story from your heart. And, if you want to add anything about your bio, your family, I don't typically dig into that, but feel free. Welcome to the call on the show. We're super excited to be chatting with you today.
Hey, thanks, brother. I'm super excited to be here with you guys and share both a little bit about my past, but more importantly about what it is I'm doing now and what Veterans Path is doing now, and hopefully how and Veterans Path can partner together. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will explain why I'm outside. My family was exposed to COVID, and we're on quarantine. And, there's zero connectivity at my house, so I found a park in the middle of nowhere. But there is connectivity here. Funny enough, there's more connectivity here than there is in my house out in the country. So I've come here rather than going to a Starbucks or into work, and hopefully the message will still come across clearly, and it won't get too broken up by the wind or any of the other surrounding noise. So thanks for bearing with me and being flexible with my schedule today too. I sincerely appreciate that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your story. Let's go whatever direction you want to go with it.
Yeah. Well, shoot. To start, I guess a little foundational support for the story. Grew up in Louisiana. I was actually born in South Africa, moved to the States when I was 7 years old. Grew up in Ruston, Louisiana, running track and cross country. And I was part of a very small, kind of very high performing team there. About midway through high school, decided that I wanted to be part of something big when I left high school and serve my country. Wanted to continue to be part of a tight-knit group that was doing good stuff. So I found the Navy SEAL teams. I won't go through all the training and everything there, but ended up in the teams doing good work. Like you mentioned at the beginning, serving amongst some of this country's best. And my first deployment, as you well know, Mike, was the Red Wings deployment, and was friends with all those guys who were lost on that deployment. And it affected me to a point that it remained with me the rest of my career, caused some stress and anxiety and depression. And I wasn't sure exactly what caused it because I wasn't actually on the operation. I was to be on the operation. I was pulled off. There were times when I was going to be on the helicopter that got shot down. I was pulled off, and back and forth. But I wasn't sure what it really was about that bothered me until many years later, when I was going to talk counseling to address the depression and the anxiety. And this one counselor asked me, "Hey, have you ever tried meditation or mindfulness?" And I kind of laughed him off and blew it off, and then went back and continued to push it. And I eventually tried it out. And about 2 months after trying it out, what it was that had been bothering me and I had never fully addressed was survivor guilt. And the meditation and mindfulness actually helped that bubble to the surface. And then once it was bubbled to the surface, then I could go into the talk counseling and address it properly. And I got over it. And prior to that, the Navy had me on different medications to address the stress and the anxiety and the depression. And that had definitely helped with some of that stuff, but it also taken away the joy of life. So I just felt like this numb shell of a person that I had been. And there were times when I considered some very dark thoughts. And I attribute mindfulness meditation to saving my life, not just changing my life for the better, but literally saving my life. And so once I got introduced to it and it had done that for me, I felt that I had to pay it forward to my fellow service members and my fellow veterans. I considered founding a nonprofit that taught mindfulness and meditation to veterans, but lo and behold, Veterans Path already existed, and they found out about me. I found out about them. They were relocating their headquarters to Colorado Springs, which is where my wife and I decided we were going to move, and all the stars were aligning. So they brought me on board as their deputy executive director about 9 months prior to my leaving active duty. I retired this last August, and I've been on full time with them as their deputy executive director since then. And that's what we do. We introduce mindfulness and meditation to veterans, and we've moved left of the transition line, so we're working with the active duty members as well, because we do feel that it does help with a lot of those mental health challenges that service members have, but it also helps them to perform better and just feel better in the military and live a happier and healthier, more fulfilling life. So yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And I mean, so the way you reacted in the beginning to mindfulness and meditation is probably like just being completely transparent where I am with it right now, right? And so like what's really funny is, you know how sometimes like your things get revealed to you over time, and I feel like I'm like peeling back those layers of these onions and wondering why I didn't start on this like 10 years ago, or because like so Bob is very into this, Jackie, and Jackie's part of OAT now and doing great stuff there, and like I'm having like these slow reveals of like all these collateral benefits, because I do think for most people, I mean, there's not a lot of people that if they said they were going to, write down the top 10 things about a Navy SEAL, whether it's an officer in a list, I don't think, mindfulness or yoga or meditation will ever fall on those lists, right? And now I'm realizing though how many guys and gals are doing that, and how beneficial it is. So like, how did you in the beginning work through, like, I'm sure you had some kind of a natural apprehension, or it's like, oh my gosh, I'll never slow my mind down. It's like the first time I did a float tank session, I could not relax. Like my brain was just firing like nonstop. And you know what kind of personality I have. So like, how did you tackle that? And like, how can someone who's listening who might want to try it, find comfort in the fact that you can kind of come to grips with it?
Yeah, completely. Great question, Mike. Yeah, when that guy introduced it to me initially and he said, hey, practice mindfulness and meditation, I think he realized right off the bat that he had made a mistake by presenting it that way, because I did. I was like, what? That's for sissies. It's for wimps, and all this negative connotation that you kind of mentioned. And I was like, that's not for me. Although now I know that it was. A few weeks later, when I went back to him, he couched it in a completely different way. He's like, hey, try something out that's going to really improve your performance. And as a type A personality and as a SEAL, we're always looking for an edge over our enemies or over our fellow SEALs. We always want to perform better. And that's what sold it to me. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll try this out. And he showed me some very high performing individuals who were doing it. He showed me the data and the physiology behind it, and I'm kind of a data and a science nerd, so I was like, okay, yeah, it's not just this flowery thing that's kind of like snake oil. It actually does work. There's some science behind it. Let me try it out. And that's what changed me, changed my perspective on it. And then I did sit down and I was like, okay, I'm going to try this out. And I just downloaded a very simple app. It's called Insight Timer. I mean, there's tons of them, and one is better than the other, and I don't know. It depends on your personality, which one you prefer. But there's tons of different apps on there, on the App Store or whatever phone you have. But I downloaded Insight Timer, and I started with a very simple meditation. I was like, okay, 15 minutes. I can do 15 minutes, no problem. And I was wrong. Okay, I can't meditate. And then I found some very short meditations, 2-3 minute ones, and I tried those out, and I was able to make it through those. And I kind of started small and worked my way up to 15 minutes, and then I worked my way up to an hour. And sometimes I do a half hour, sometimes I do all the way up to an hour. But now my normal practice is 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes after lunch, and that's what has really set my mind right in the morning to go about my day. And then after lunch, when I'm kind of starting to feel that afternoon slump, and start thinking, hey, I need another cup of coffee, that meditation is as good as a nap. That 15 minutes is as good as a nap. Physiologically, it's as good as a nap, truly. And then mentally, it makes me feel more alert through the rest of the day, and then able to get through. But
so can I pause you right there?
Yeah, please, man.
Yeah,
please.
So you just brought up something that was very interesting. Like, I think it was on my first deployment when we came back, we went to the SEAL reunion, and at that time, this is like 2000, yeah, it was 2001 basically. And that year, back at that time, we had a lot of Vietnam era SEALs that were still there. And I was like, I thought I was drinking too much. I thought I was misunderstanding what this guy was talking about. But one of the things that he talked about was actually doing meditation when he was on ops. So like, when you get to a perimeter and you halt, and everybody's exhausted, like he said, like when he wasn't on security, he would do this like 5-minute ritual that he would do. And it literally was like he had just slept for like an hour, and it was amazing. And he was super charged up again. And at that time I was like looking at my beer. I was like, okay, I must have misunderstood him. But so you've really had that kind of an energy increase from it too.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean,
Wow.
It's not like I still fully believe in, a good night's rest. I'm not saying, hey, you can go on 4 hours of sleep forever. But yeah, if I'm starting to feel that afternoon slump, that 15 minutes of just resting my mind and resting my body and not going to sleep, you still get the recovery. You still get that kind of that jolt and get ready to tackle the rest of the day. And I want to hit on that guy's method there. You remember when we were teaching land warfare and everything else, when we would go out on these training ops, first thing you'd do when you would get out of the helo van, right, or the helo truck, is you do your SILs, your stop, look, listen, smell, and that's paying attention to your surroundings, allowing your body to adjust to your surroundings. That's what mindfulness is. You may not be meditating per se, but you're paying attention to your surroundings in the here, in the now. You're paying attention to the sounds, paying attention to the physical sensations of your body. You're paying attention to your breathing. That's mindfulness. And little did we know we were practicing it on every single op.
Right.
And nobody called it that, right? if they told you to get off the helo truck or get out of the helicopter in a real world operation and practice mindfulness, you'd be like, whatever, fruitcake.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what we were doing, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so you've learned a little bit about OAT and what's going on. Like, what's been your assessment on the program so far? And then let's tie in how can we integrate Veterans Path and the stuff that you're doing with OAT?
Sure.
I don't know when you saw OAT for the first time, honestly.
It's probably a year and a half ago. Bob Newman introduced it to me. Actually, maybe more than that. Maybe 2 years ago. Introduced it to me. It was his idea of what he wanted to become, and just the name that syncs up with what Veterans Path mission is. We do mindfulness and meditation, but it's also developing a community and doing it in physical and outdoor settings. Physical activities in outdoor settings. So that's right in line with what it is you guys are doing. If you guys are out on a bike, if you guys are out on a boat, if you guys are running, you're out there and experiencing nature and being in the moment. I mean, when you're on the bike, you can't zone out. I mean, heck, Bob will tell you if you zone out, what can happen on a bike, right?
Right.
And you have to be paying attention to everybody else in the line. You have to be paying attention to where your wheels are relative to everybody else. And you take your mind off that for a second, and you can have a pretty bad crash. My dad's a big cyclist, so I've known that for a while. But again, I didn't realize when he was telling me all this stuff growing up about cycling that it was mindfulness, being in the moment and kind of tuning out all the other noise that's coming into our mind. We always talk about tuning out the noise and focusing on the signal. That's what mindfulness is. You don't necessarily have to meditate all the time, but mindfulness is just being present. Present in the here and now, and not worrying about what you did yesterday, not worrying about what's happening tomorrow. But as you're on that bike, right, and you're following your tire right in front of you, you're what else are you thinking about? Nothing. You're thinking about the here and now, and that's where I think there's a lot of overlap in what OAT does and what Veterans Path does, is we bring people into the present moment, and if we're able to partner in some form or fashion, the what's the saying? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. What it is you guys are doing with your network, what it is we are doing with our network, we bring those two together. Is, I think, what we can do for our veterans, for our service members, for the families of our veterans and service members is just limitless.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let me ask you a personal question.
Sure.
Mindfulness, because I talked about earlier, how we have a lot of new initiatives with regards to families, right? And there's an overall healing piece, which I know you understand, right? So mindfulness, like this experience in your life, how has it positively affected you as a husband, as a father? I mean, how does that part tied into like a family benefit from that experience that you've, taken on?
Yeah, for those who are just listening and not watching, you may have. I'll tell you, I've got a huge smile on my face because this is actually one of my favorite parts of my story. So when this counselor introduced me to mindfulness and meditation, I started to feel better about my work. I started to feel more productive, more focused at work, and all that, and that's all great. But really, the biggest thing that hit me, I mean, it's like a ton of bricks, is at the time my 3.5-year-old daughter now, at the time she was 6 months old. I was getting up in the middle of the night and I was feeding her a bottle. And when I would do that, it's I don't know 1, 2, 3 in the morning, I would get up, get the bottle, pop it in my baby girl's mouth. And as I'm doing that, as I'm sitting there in the dark in her bedroom, holding this beautiful miracle, I'm thinking about, okay, what does tomorrow hold? What's the day look like tomorrow? Or what did I screw up yesterday? Or bills, or my to-do list, or whatever, all that noise that I was talking about, right? And what I found was after about 2 months of practicing mindfulness and meditation, and I'm still getting up to feed my daughter in the morning, in the wee hours, all that stuff went away. And I'm feeding her this bottle, and I'm paying attention to her little hands, like reaching up and grabbing the bottle, or the little coos and noises that she's making. And I was enjoying waking up in the middle of the night to feed my daughter, because that was my one-on-one time, my completely alone time with her. And that's when I was like, holy cow, what happened? I'm not thinking about my to-do list. I'm not thinking about the bills or any of that other stuff. I'm thinking about the important stuff, the here and now, this beautiful miracle that's in my arms. And it happened day after day after day. And then I started to realize, hey, I'm actually paying attention in the present with my wife. And
Right.
and a year later, or about a year and a half later, rather, we had my son, and I went through that same thing, like feeding my boy in the middle of the night, and never once did I sit down to feed him in the middle of the night and think, hey, I've got to get this and this done tomorrow. I was sitting there in the present, and I was in the present with my wife. I was in the present with my extended family. When we would go on vacation, I'd enjoy the vacation rather than think about, man, this vacation is just getting in the way of my time and my productivity. I could enjoy the moment. And I mean, that sounds kind of trite, but yeah, enjoying the moment. If you're able to do that, enjoy this moment and the next moment and the next moment, it adds up, and your day and your life becomes that much more fulfilling.
Well, and then the dividends on the return that you're going to get from the kids and the spouse over time. Like, I think that's a conversation that a lot of people will get benefit from. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. We can stay very busy. We can stay very focused on targets and stuff like that. But the ability to slow down and remember, it's important to be present with your kids. It's important to be present with your dog. It's important. Like, there's like a healthy benefit to that. And it's funny because while you were telling that story, I was thinking, when I retired in 2013, the first thing I said to myself is, okay, Michael needs to go figure out who he really is right now. Right. Because I said when I came in, I said, I'm going to embrace this community all I can, but it's not going to define me. I was a person before I came in, and I was a person that came out. And then the second part was, I said, I got to go learn how to talk to people, because I knew I was going to end up in business, and I knew I was going to do corporate America. I was like, I'm not talking like a chief in the teams, right? Like, so I went on this path, down the John Maxwell path. And so basically I got certified to become a speaker, trainer, coach.
Nice.
The long story short of why I'm bringing it up is, probably had I invested in this type of stuff at that moment, I would be even more fulfilled today, because learning how to speak is nothing, right? Like, it's a process, just like learning how to shoot, learning how to do anything. It's a process, right? And we all can learn it. But the thing is, like, that's why I'm really excited that now you're back in my life, Jackie's in our life, and we're seeing people go through these transformations. and doing these things that are really going to pay these long-term benefits. And I'm like, okay, I'm 50, I'm about to be 51. I'm just figuring out that this stuff exists, which has existed for hundreds of years. And, just because whatever, the environment, I just never tried it before. It's like, this is something that for the listeners and people, like, I want you guys to reach out if any of this is making sense to John, and find out more about this, because this is so vital to our overall health and well-being. And really, that's like the core pillar of OAT. It's great. Community full, my background in the military, regardless of your job, typically love to do these crazy workouts because they want to get rid of like the stress and they get some good release through it. But until we really start focusing on this side of our body, which ties and is connected with so many aspects of our character, our whatever, our productivity, all of that, this is, worth tapping into and learning more about. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, super excited that we have the opportunity to introduce you to our listeners. Definitely want to be able to keep this conversation going. Actually, one other question that you have.
Sure.
So obviously, again, you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. We both run, big things. And this year has caused a lot of changes, right? So like Veterans Path, prior to COVID, I'm sure you guys pivoted just like everybody else. Like, how have you been able to, keep engaging with people with your services? So, and then what does it look like? If I want to get involved with Veterans Pass, tell us how we do that.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that opportunity for the plug, man. We did a huge pivot. We were doing in-person retreats that varied between 1 day and 5 days, and then one that was where you do 5 days in person, then you're online for a couple months, and then you come back for a few days in person again. That's called our Anchor program. And Jackie's actually done that online, which was one of our pivots. Was we converted the 1 day and the Anchor program into online programs. That was something that we were looking at doing down the road, but COVID really accelerated that. And luckily, we've partnered with a couple of other organizations. One called eMindful. That's a online mindfulness and meditation platform where we can do classes. They're live, but they're virtual. And then we've also partnered with the Deepak Chopra Foundation. He's a big name in the mindfulness and meditation space, and they have brought more ability to bring what it is we're doing into the virtual space. So right now with COVID, we're exclusively virtual with eMindful and with Chopra Foundation, and hopefully in the coming months, back when it starts warming up and hopefully the COVID vaccine is introduced and everything starts getting back to hopefully some sense of normalcy, we'll be doing in-person retreats again, but we'll also keep that online stuff going because we realize that it's at least scalable. It's not as intimate. Intimate is the word probably that I'll use, but it's certainly we can bring it to so many more people. They can do it in their homes. And what we found was when we did it online with eMindful, there's no picture of the person who was doing the class. Besides, like the teacher, there's a picture of, but not the student. And so the student can be completely anonymous. So people who are like, hey, I'll try out mindfulness and meditation, or, I'm not 100% sold on it, let me try it out. We found that people are more willing to actually do some of the online stuff than they are the in-person retreats because of that anonymity. So yeah, it's pretty amazing what COVID has done in that respect. Sure, it's an awful disease, but in some ways it's been a blessing to some organizations and some people, and that we can bring this to them. As far as finding out more about us, we're on all the different social medias. Veterans Path, veterans with a plural, or I'm sorry, possessive S, so veteran '(S) path. Or you can find us online, veteranspath.org. That's where we are on our website. And yeah, we're continuing to grow and scale what we're doing both virtually and hopefully again we'll be doing in-person retreats again soon.
That's awesome. Well, we're glad that we had some time with you today, and we thank you greatly.
Thank you, Mike.
And I know there's a lot of good stuff to come for those of you listening or watching. We're planning our first retreat for the springtime. We're hoping by then everybody's going back to normal and being able to get out and about. So John's going to be part of that. We've got like some of the other people we mentioned today. Jackie's going to be part of that, and we really got some great stuff. And this is really valuable, incredible stuff to pay attention to and learn about in life. So thank you, John, so much for hopping on with us
Thank you
today. And again, we'll put your links down below so everybody can click on it and reach out. Keep us aware how we can help as well. And just excited to do this with you. So
absolutely, brother.
Yeah. So that's it for our podcast today, guys. We want to thank you guys for joining us again. We want to thank one more time T-Mobile for coming on board this year and really helping us create some traction and get some new offerings launched. If you do want to find out more information about the Outdoor Adventure Team, you can go to the USO website and follow down under the programs. Most of our information is promoted through our Instagram account. So just look for the USO Hampton Road, Central Virginia OAT Outdoor Adventure Team. There's a link tree link there too, where you can go to all of our different platforms. And we look forward to seeing you. So we're growing. We're excited to end this awesome year of 2020 strong. And we thank you. We're here for you. Everybody have a great day. Take care.
For more episodes like these, search Coffee Cake Camo on podcasts, Podbean, or YouTube. Also use the hashtag CoffeeCakeCamo to tell us what you thought of this latest episode and share a topic that could be featured on the next one.